first session of International Mediation Awareness Week month for November 2025, and I'm very delighted to introduce Hollia Lam. Hello, Hollia, welcome.
Hello, hi everyone.
I will hand over to you so that you can introduce yourself a little bit more.
Thank you. Thanks, Joanne. I think I'll share my screen because I've prepared some slides for this, and I think it would be good if we get everybody to have a look. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and a warm welcome to the International Mediation Awareness Week 2025. As Joanne just mentioned, my name is Hollia Lam. I am the principal solicitor at Lamco, and I'm also a nationally accredited mediator. I got my qualification in Hong Kong, and then after that, I came and trained with Joanne to get it accredited in Australia. Now, before we begin, I invite you to take a deep breath and think of a moment of misunderstanding you've had recently, perhaps at work, with family, or even online. What happened in that moment of disconnect? Was it about the issue itself, or was it about not feeling heard? If anyone wants to just unmute and quickly share a moment, I think it will be a really good interactive moment.
Everyone's shy.
Anyone?
I think for me, the particular incident I'm thinking of is I don't know that the other person fully understood my motives, what I meant, and I was confused about their reply.
Right.
And what their intention was.
Yes. So it's a little bit of not sure about if it's the issue or if it's a feeling. It's a bit of mixture.
I don't know that it was the issue itself. I think it's more what's behind what they said.
Yeah. So there was a moment of disconnection.
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So that feeling of misunderstanding in the mediation space exists to heal. And today our topic is about bridging borders through dialogue. And it's about healing that space on a global scale. I am a multilingual commercial lawyer practicing across most of the jurisdiction in Australia. I still do a lot of work with my Hong Kong clients, and people might also come across somewhere in Asia. And I love this topic, and I told Joanne and everyone that I want to be presenting because it just resonates with me so much. And because dispute now is across legal and cultural borders. So I often say to clients, the world is getting smaller, but our difference feel bigger. Think about this. A business deal can now span 5 time zones. A family can belong to 3 legal systems, and a contract dispute might be drafted in one language and performed in another. Every interaction we have today, personal or commercial, carries a layer of culture, expectation, and identity. When conflict arises across those layers, litigation often turns them into walls, and mediation builds bridges instead. Do we agree on that? That's good. So who here has worked with a client or partner from another country in the last year? You just have to put your hands up or not. You don't have to speak if you don't want to. Okay. Cross-border collaboration is no longer rare. It's our everyday reality. And why dialogue matters now? Because everything is in a global context. We're living through a time of polarization, social, political, and even digital. Algorithm reward outrage, news cycles amplify division. And in that environment, mediation is actually an act of hope. Instead of competing for volume, it's competing for understanding. Mediation is the only space that will help people understand through the issues and what is actually happening. Across borders, that hope becomes critical because without dialogue, commerce stalls, community fracture, and justice become a luxury few can afford, right? Because only people who can afford lawyers can then go ahead and litigate. But no, actually, we have the option of going for mediation. And now the mediation advantage. I'm sure we all know this here because we're all one way or the other somehow connected to mediation, whether you're a lawyer or not. Voluntariness, you choose to participate. Confidentiality, it's in the mediation itself. The mediator also doesn't judge, advise, or decide. By the way, that's one of the reasons why I love mediation. It's so much less risk compared to the legal advice that I would need to give. Self-determination. The parties themselves design the solution. You're there to facilitate, as what we all learn. And it's a lot of cooperation instead of confrontation. So mediation is a structured conversation guided by neutrality and trust. But beyond the process is a philosophy, actually. It recognizes that people in conflict aren't just fighting over facts. They're fighting to protect meaning, identity, and maybe dignity. The mediator's role is not to decide who is right. It's to help both sides to see that they may both be right from where they stand. And that shift from winning to understand is what mediation is transformative in today's world. Now, I love interactive, so I'm going to ask a lot of questions. For those who just want to eat lunch and don't want to participate, I don't blame you, right? But if you want to participate, please join me. When was the last time you changed your mind because you truly listened to someone else? Janice?
Yeah, I can't think of a particular recent incident, but I do know that I have changed my mind because I suppose, listened to someone else.
That's good. And Joanne, would you agree with me that actually being a mediator really needs to be listening?
Oh, absolutely. It's critical because there's always gaps. You think you understand something, but until you really listen to the other person, and like you said, Janice, uncertainty about where someone's coming from, and you make judgments based on what you think, why you think that they did something, and if they tell you, get a different perspective, it can change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the changing of landscape, I want to talk about why a lot of people are tapping more and more into mediation in practice. And because there's a rise of international transaction, digital contract, and all this online dispute resolution after COVID, I'll just do a little comparison. In litigation, people will ask who's right. In mediation, we ask what will work. Litigation ends relationship. Mediation, we often restore the relationship. In litigation, a judge decides. In mediation, the parties decide, which goes back to why they probably start business together, right? And that means the solution can fit the real world, not just the legal text. For business owners, that means continuing a joint venture under new terms instead of burning it down. For family, it means preserving relationship that court orders probably can't. Case study, I'll just mention a brief one without any confidential information, or it's a makeup one from me. An Australian distributor and a Singaporean manufacturer had worked together for years. When supply chain delays hits, email grew tense, words like "you breached the contract," "want compensation" began to appear. At the mediation table, I would ask each side to explain, and not why they were angry, but what they really needed. And turns out the distributor needed certainty, and the manufacturer needed understanding of the logistical constraint and public holiday in the region. So these are the things that if you write a legal email, it may not come out. Once those needs were named, the conflict deflated, and they agreed to buffer stock plan, kept the relationship, saving thousands of dollars in legal fees. It wasn't really about the law. It was really about listening. If you were mediating this case, what question would you actually ask for? Anyone?
Possibly what you would like to gain out of mediation.
That's a good starting point. Claire, I think you wanted to say something as well. Did you?
No, I'm okay. Thank you so much.
And Joanne, did you have a suggestion of the questions that you might want to ask the parties?
I'll be wanting to get a little bit of history, like a little bit of a timeline of what they were trying to achieve and what's changed and that sort of thing. So about the dynamics.
So what I would do is actually just ask what happened.
Yeah.
I think that's such a powerful question. What happened? And then people's emotions, everything will come out, because as long as you ask someone what happened, they're like, this is actually what's happening to me. And then you can start seeing things from their perspective.
Holly, my first question is always, what are the issues about from your perspective? What would you like to achieve in today's session? That's the opening for both ends, equal amount of time. And then I would double check if all issues are raised, and I would double check which one is the most important. Weave into the same conversation some questions about what Joanne mentioned, the relationship. How did it start? So try to also highlight some positive potentially, if you know, based on your intake, that they have some positive history, hopefully, because that is a great starting point.
Absolutely. I agree. And another case study that I was going to do is community across culture. So a multicultural community organization conflict. It's a makeup one. So Australian, Indonesian, Malaysian member clashed over how meetings were run. To one group, speaking openly was a sign of engagement. To another, it felt disrespectful. Mediation uncovered those unspoken rules, and we discovered how hierarchy, religion, and age shape their expectation. By acknowledging each view as valid, the group crafted a hybrid protocol that honored both culture. And afterwards, a member actually said, I realized we weren't arguing about procedure. We were arguing about respect. And that moment, mediation moves from resolution to reconnection. Because I'm sure everyone can agree here, cultural communication differences are just massive. And for example, I know in the Chinese culture where I come from, often at a company hierarchy situation, if you know someone is more senior than you don't want to talk over them, for example, because that's regarded as disrespectful. And you might have to even wait for your turn to start talking. So I think in this case scenario, mediation can really restore trust and common purpose. It helps people reconnecting back with each other and doing business together and, honoring what, at the beginning, the purpose was. Why were we here to start with? Cultural intelligence in depth. Its ability to function effectively across culture, right? High cultural intelligence mediators adopt communication style. They sense when to speak, when to pause, and when to translate a gesture instead of word. For example, Japanese people, they like to bow. It's a sense of respect, it's a sense of thank you. So maybe after one party has spoken out loud for what they wanted to say, you actually might want to give a moment to pause and bow. Those are the cultural differences that sometimes you might need a bit of time to sense and know. And I often say language is only the surface. Culture is the current beneath it. If we only listen to words, we're missing the meaning beneath the waterline. Multilingual skills build empathy and balance. Imagine you're mediating between a German engineer and a Japanese designer. What potential communication differences might arise? Anyone wants to?
Well, my background is from Europe. I'm Dutch, but the Germans are also very straightforward. So that would be a very straightforward communication, which might feel for the Japanese, I think a builder or engineer, too confronting.
Yeah.
And vice versa, if the German would like to have a straightforward answer, are we going ahead, yes or no, what direction, potentially from that other perspective, that you have to read that in between the lines.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in that case, maybe a bit more breakout session might even be needed before everyone can come together, right? Now, building trust through dialogue. Trust is earned through small moments of respect. And when a mediator acknowledges someone's emotion without judgment, it creates safety. And when they summarize accurately, it creates confidence. So what you really want to do in a room when you're mediating is to replace a fear with curiosity. You want to be curious about what each other is talking about. You want to listen to their different values and perspective. Once you start listening, it creates cooperation. In a cross-border setting, trust often requires acknowledging power imbalance. Perhaps one party speaks the mediator's language better or has more legal resources. Naming that imbalance doesn't weaken the process, it makes it honest. True dialogue begins the moment when everyone feels equal enough to speak. That will truly help the mediation process. Technology and future. I don't know if anyone loves this topic, but I absolutely loves it. I don't know if people have tried out those instant translate, those technology that you speak one language, you straight away output another one. It's so amazing. Technology has flattened distance. I've conducted mediation with different countries on screen. It's incredible. Online platform mean greater accessibility for remote regions and reduce costs for small business. Yet, screen also hides body language and emotions. you can't see what the true emotion that the party in front of you is having, because there's no more reading that you can do other than what the face is like on the screen. As mediator, we must also compensate for what we can't see, using tone, clarifying questions, and deliberate pauses. I found pauses super powerful. It makes people think and really give you a meaningful response. Technology expands reach, empathy keeps it real. So human empathy remains essential. You really need to show your empathy, even across the screen. And it just becomes harder because you can't look into that person's eyes. What you're looking at is a camera. Not sure if a lot of you have heard about the Singapore Convention 2019, but it's a landmark because it answered the question of how can we trust a settlement across borders. It creates uniform framework so that mediated agreement can be enforced internationally, a huge confidence boost for cross-border commerce. It also means that a company in Australia, one in UAE, can mediate knowing the agreement has legal teeth. It turns dialogue into a legally recognized currency of trust. And over 50 countries have signed it, as the later research that I've done. But I think it's a great thing to know if you are in, in commercial law, and that your client is, wanting to mediate across border, knowing that there is a platform for them. Now, despite all the law and logistic, mediation remains a human art, and it's a fine art. Every section is a window into courage. It takes bravery to face someone you disagree with and say, I want to understand you. It's hard to even say that to my partner sometimes, to be honest. And I take every moment as a mediation moment, right? So that moment when one person softens and another listens is where the resolution happens. Sometimes it's quiet, it's a nod, it's a deep breath, it's, I see your point. It's those small human gestures that create the biggest change. Behind every dispute, there's always people that can see the difference. And dialogue restore understanding. And these are the small action that we need to constantly take and remind ourselves that we're doing our job. Now, think of a time where you saw someone change their tone because they finally felt hurt. What shifted in that moment?
Acknowledgement. Feeling heard. Small apology. The smallest apology I try to blow out.
Yeah.
To repeat to one another, so it won't be missed in all the talking.
Mm.
And then the pause afterwards. Crickets. Let them sit with what had just happened.
Yeah. That's really powerful, isn't it? Now, let me just go back to my slides. Can you guys see my slides still?
Yes, the human element. I think you wanted to have the next one.
Yeah. So imagine a future where international disputes are resolved not in courtrooms, but in a virtual rooms of understanding, where government, businesses, and communities use mediation first, but not last. Isn't that amazing? This is what I want. That future is possible if we train mediators with multilingual, cross-cultural skills, and we educate business leaders to see dialogue as strategy, not as delay. and see us mediator as having this set of skills that we are trained for to make it happen. Every agreement achieved through mediation adds a small tone to the bridge of global trust. Together, those stones form a pathway towards peaceful commerce and sustainable relationship. My little call to action is we do not see things as they are. We see them as we are. Mediation invites us to see through another's eyes, to choose conversation over confrontation and curiosity over certainty. As you leave today, I invite you to carry this question with you. How can you use dialogue in your work, your family, your community to build bridges instead of walls? Because every time we choose understanding, we bring the world one step closer together. Thank you for allowing me to be part of this amazing International Mediation Awareness Week and for believing in the power of dialogue. I look forward to your questions and insight. If anyone has any question, please feel free to ask.
Well, on a day-to-day basis, how would you say that you will add on to bringing mediation into these situations? Like, I hear you, your purpose is to make sure mediation is embraced in all types of industries and potentially will be the first point of call. How do you advocate for that in your own day-to-day life?
Yeah, as a lawyer, it's hard, right? I actually have a quote that I love saying, but not every lawyer will agree with me, because what I like to say is not everything is legal. Not everything is a legal matter, which is true, you know. If you get to understand the person a little bit more, you will then realize what he's crying about is not the legal issues itself. He's talking about how long this thing takes. He's talking about how much energy he has to put in this litigation, how time consuming this is, and that he has to still wake up every single day to deal with this. It's not legal. I can continue to tell him this is just a litigation process. It takes like, at least 2 years to get a court date, but that's not what he's trying to tell you. He's trying to tell you that he's very tired. So if mediation can actually help him solve the problem, it will solve it without waiting for court dates, waiting for people to do the submission, putting things together. And that's why I say not everything is legal.
Yeah, very, very true. One of the things you touched on a lot is respect and those international differences in perhaps how people feel respected or even recognize that someone's trying to be respectful. Would you be able to talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've spent half of my life in Australia, half of my life in Asia, you can say. Even sometimes I found that it's a little bit struggling because there are certain points where you don't know whether you have stepped on each other's toes. And okay, is this respectful to say? Because in a Western culture, we just put our hands up, speak loudly about our opinion, right?
Yeah.
But in Asia culture, sometimes, yes, you want to say that, but it might not be the best timing or the best way to do it the way you do it in the Western culture. For example, sometimes I know this is what needs to happen in a transaction, and I just need to go and tell whoever is in charge and be like, can you just give me that in a Western scenario? But because it's a Chinese client, there's a culture element in there, I then have to privately, convene with someone first and then tell them, okay, this is about to happen. I'm going to send out an email just to give you a heads up. This is what needs to happen. And you alarm everyone else. So then it almost looks like it's just a show that, I need to put on. But for everyone else in the transaction, this is a respect that I'm paying to them instead of just throwing it out there. Oh my God, now what? I look like I'm not doing my job. Why would you send the email out? So it's just little tweak here and there that I actually think that it's a very hard thing to just say that here's a manual. Like, when you deal with Chinese people, you do this. When you deal with Japanese people, you do this. It comes with, all those little gesture that you see from other person. You take a bit of time to observe and see what their body language or their expression is trying to tell you. Try to be with them, like really, is what I would suggest. Sometimes you might not get it right. It comes from experience. Sometimes I don't understand the culture. I try to watch some TV drama to understand a bit more. But those are the little things that I do, yes.
Yeah, that's fabulous.
Yeah.
Barbara.
Hi.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi, thank you so much for talking about this. I was really curious about the cross-cultural aspects. As a mediator, and I assume with a Chinese background that I have, respect is so important. So in a mediation, when all parties are supposed to be equal, how do you navigate that? So two things. How do you navigate between the parties and yourself? Like, how are you trying to make everyone equal and not feeling like you're being disrespectful, as an example, for elder people or something like that?
Absolutely. For example, in the Chinese culture, we would call the boss of a company a certain title, like we give them a title. What I do is often at the beginning of the session, I would even give a little bit of education about culture. I say, hey, so as you can tell, I'm Chinese, and we've got one party who's Chinese and one is not. I just want to, give everybody a reassurance that I'm impartial and I'm not on either side. In Chinese culture, we do call someone by its title, blah, blah. This is respect. And I invite you to join me to call this party with this title, just so that, they understand that this is out of respect. This is not out of because I'm on his side. And then you can give a little bit of, introduction of, okay, in the Western country, sometimes, when there's certain topic that needs to be discussed, we just go on and we'll directly talk about it. If in any case during this mediation process you're not feeling comfortable with the way it is going through, please just tell me and we can pause straight away and then we can reconvene. So I think giving that little bit of expectation really help, because I think at the end of the day, sometimes people are not happy because they're not expected. They have a certain expectation in their head. They're like, I want you to respect me. I want everyone to respect me. But okay, does everybody know that that's how you want to be respected? This small thing, like even with like water, like can I get everybody some water, or I'll leave some on the table. If anyone wants to get it, welcome to go get it yourself. Right? I think it's just little things like that I would suggest.
It's fabulous. No, it didn't seem like you had any follow-up on that. I really love that. So you're basically saying you provide the meaning so that people won't make a misunderstanding of...
Just so that there's no presumptions of you calling him that. That means what, you respect him more than me. You just try to eliminate as much of those as possible. I feel like often misunderstanding all comes from presumptions anyways, right?
Yeah, very much so. One of the things that Charmaine put in the chat as we we're going through about the importance of breakout sessions. If people are a bit timid, but you've highlighted that it's not necessarily timidity, it may be just that it seems culturally inappropriate to raise something directly and people might need a little bit more space. Is that kind of an interpretation?
Yeah, absolutely. Because not only like cultural difference, it's just personality difference. You know, sometimes people are introverted. They might feel better and be able to let you know how they feel on a one-on-one basis. Like maybe when you're mediating for employer-employee situation, the employee already feel like it's an imbalance of power. They're not going to speak up in a room with their boss sitting right in front of them with a lawyer next to them. They're just going to feel so small that not being listened, whatever I say is going to be wrong. Like, so I think jumping into their shoes also involve getting to know them as a person. I'm not saying that you need to be their friends, but sometimes, you know, you can kind of tell like, is this person introverted? They're always soft and quiet. They're unlikely to be speaking up in a big room situation, right?
Absolutely. That's great. I'm just asking in the chat if there are any other comments or questions for anyone who's not able to join in on the discussion. Oh, Sarah.
Yes. Oh gosh, I finally worked out how to turn my video on. Sorry, I'm using my phone and that's not familiar for me for Zoom. I had a question, and that is, I was curious as to, Holly, whether you had suggested ways of inviting parties to talk about their cultural expectations and differences. Contextually, I've had now 2 situations in mediation where cultural difference has only come out later in the mediation. People have been not really wanting to talk about it beforehand. I have identified as Australian, one mediation more so than the other. Maybe I'll talk to that one. They're both identified as Australian, but then quite deep into the mediation, there were some vaguely negative comments from one party to the other about their culture. I mediated and neither of us picked it up. On reflection, we're thinking, oh, we could have gone in there more. It was definitely about respect. And I just wondered, you know, I've been reflecting, what would I have asked in that moment where there was a shadow of cultural vying, I suppose. What suggested questions would you have that would disrespectful, given that they've identified as Australian and haven't really wanted to go into cultural differences? I was curious about.
I think I completely understand where you got coming from, because I mean, for me, sometimes culture also don't just come with race, if that makes sense. Just because they're Asian, they might or might not have the Asian culture. That's why I would dig deep into the personality and who they are as a person, because culture also, it's a belief of how they want things done, how they believe things should be done. I mean, sometimes in the Asian culture, we have these things called feng shui, like we want to be signing the contract at a certain time because it will make you or break you. The act itself, it could have nothing to do with the race. So what I would ask is,
I'm also from a multicultural
background.
So I do understand all those kind of bits and pieces, but I'm more interested to hear
what questions
would you
think
to ask in that moment that would not be disrespectful.
I think I would ask, I'm sorry, is there anything that is making you uncomfortable? Like, just to be a bit more personal with them first. And then it depends on what their answer is. And then I go on and say, is there any particular way you prefer things to be done? Just so that you can understand, like, what is your preference? Because I'm sorry if I'm missing something. I'm trying to understand here and reassuring that I'm really here wanting to to listen. And I'm curious, is there something that I can do better to help?
Yeah, they had very standard answers for all those sorts of questions, but it never came to culture. I think what I would do next time is be more direct and say, there's some indication here that culture is playing a hand. I'm interested to hear, can you share with each other what's behind that? They were making comments about, anyway, the details of mediations are always so interesting.
Yeah, but
I think what I would do in future is be more direct about it.
So sometimes the problem is that we're fish in water. It's often hard for us to recognise our own cultures.
Yeah.
That's the right way and the other ones are the wrong way from some people's mind. Obviously none of ours. But so, yeah, sometimes even the word culture can be a barrier, and it might be a perspective, or maybe there's another language that would cut through for them. I'm just throwing that out there.
Hey, Sarah, I was wondering, potentially you had multiple sessions, so you picked up on those wordings. Sometimes I let people repeat what they just said because it might be the key to the solution. So then I would say, sorry, just missed that. I haven't missed it. Could you please repeat, and could you look the other person in the eye or whatnot? Then you make it into something the other will pick up on, or you give yourself opportunity to have a bit of a silence. Okay, just having a think. How would that relate? Is it what you just told me into the bigger picture? Is there a relation? Or what you could do if you would feel like it would be too direct. I love directness, but it's not for everybody. If you then would have a new session, another one, follow up, then in the debrief, you could raise it. And then you could ask permission if that would be something which ties into whatever you're trying to resolve, to bring that back to the other party and just give a bit of feelers, just for your own understanding in the bigger scope of things, because you could be right, or you could be wrong, but we generally do things based on intuition. It stuck with you, so that there is something to unpack.
I love that, just in the moment asking, could you repeat that?
Yeah.
Because I certainly do have a tendency in life to try to understand it by myself. Yeah, just asking people to repeat. And it's getting better nowadays because my hearing's not as good. So
you've got an excuse. Use it.
It can be so beneficial in some ways. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Any other, maybe just a final reflection if there's no more questions or comments while you're thinking about that. Hollia, I think for me, one of the big messages was that in that scope of the commercial mediation, contract disputes, all of that stuff that can be seen as very black and white, legalistic, the key to unlocking it all is the humanity of helping people to be seen and heard so that they can let go of those positions and progress.
Yeah.
That's takeaway for me.
That's good. Well, thank you so much for everyone's participation. I really loved the session and I hope you guys also loved it. I think this week there will be a few more of this kind of session with different topics. I'll let Joanne talk about it and invite others to come to it.
Yeah, thank you once again, Hollia. Yes, there's a number of members. Oh, Yvette's got the time wrong. Someone coming in now. There'll be a number of different events happening. There's still time if anyone wants to run an event for International Mediation Awareness Week. We're hoping to raise awareness of various aspects of non-adversarial dispute resolution. Lots of scope and perspectives to bring in. Rowan has dropped the link in the chat to the website mediationinstitute.edu.au/IMAW, International Mediation Awareness Week. If you go on YouTube or LinkedIn and use the hashtag, you'll find these. We'll put this recording up on the stream for International Mediation Awareness Week. I'm sorry, Yvette, it looks like the time zones have mucked you around. We're just finishing up the session, but you'll be able to catch it.
Thank you.
Any other final reflections from anyone else?
I just wanted to thank you. I jumped in a few minutes late, but then I got into the groove. So thank you for everything you've shared. Very insightful.
Thank you.
You had some lovely ways of describing the benefits of mediation over the legal processes, Hollia. That was very nice to hear.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Anyone who's in a dispute, please have a look at some of those benefits and perhaps ask your legal advisors, how do we get into mediation? Okay. Thank you very much.